The Pleasant Hill Church of the Brethren's history dates back to the early 19th century, when Brethren moved to southwest Ohio and worshiped together in homes. In 1840, a log meeting house was built on State Route 48 north of town. The congregation outgrew the log house, and in 1849, a stone church was built on Sugar Grove Road, north of Pleasant Hill, and later known to the Brethren as Camp Sugar Grove. Members came from Covington and Pleasant Hill, as well as the surrounding countryside. The stone church was replaced by a brick church in 1874. The congregation worshipped here until 1903.
Well, Camp Sugar Grove was started by the Brethren Church. The Jacksons and the Millers have always been brethren.
One of our ancestors, Cyrus Miller, helped to start the church here in Pleasant Hill back in the 1800s.
Starting a church must have been hard. Was the church anything like it is today?
Well, a lot of basic beliefs are the same, but many of the rules have changed.
What were some of the rules?
Oh, there were strict rules about clothing, hair, beards, mustaches. Members weren't allowed to attend dances or belong to lodges. You know, they couldn't even attend school exhibitions.
The new century brought change to the Pleasant Hill congregation. The Sugar Grove building had served them well for decades, but the time came to build a new church and relocate to town. Construction began on a new church building located at the corner of State Route 48 and North Street in Pleasant Hill. Growth in membership necessitated the addition of a Sunday school wing in 1916. In this building, the church experienced growth in numbers and programs.
We loved that old church. It was difficult leaving it for all my family, I guess, just because, we all enjoyed it there.
We didn't actually have a center aisle. We had two aisles in the church and a slanted floor. And I know people that got married, they was afraid that when they got their rings out, that they'd roll down on the floor and there was a register up in front. They was afraid that the rings would go down that register. So I don't think any did, but that was their concerns.
The church was changing about this time, becoming more of the world, adjusting to such things as women cutting their hair and wearing hats and men wearing ties. And this was at a time when they still weren't wearing jewelry, not even wedding bands.
In time, however, the building began to show its age. With the structural integrity in question, the congregation now had to find a way forward.
As I remember, one morning, the church shifted, and Carl remembers he could see the grass between the bricks and the siding or something.
So we raised the money and bought 13 acres of land where the church is. Well, it wasn't quite 13, it was 12.9 something. And we gave $13,000 for it.
In 1969, land was purchased east of Pleasant Hill at a cost of $13,000 for the future site of a new church building. The groundbreaking was held on May 31st, 1970.
Memories. I do remember when we laid the groundbreaking for the new church, someone brought a plow and a big long rope, and we all got on the rope and we dug a furrow. And I'd never done that before, never done it again. I thought that was really cool. And plus we were having church outside, which was awesome.
So my dad, it was turned over to him, and he was in his 70s. And then my dad, at his age, would go up there every day when that was going. He helped. He did.
Construction was a community effort. From laying the foundation to sowing new grass, everyone seemed to contribute something to the new building.
My husband, Ivan, didn't say anything to me until it was all over with. And he'd come home one day and he said, "I'm going to do the plumbing at the church." I said, "You're going to do what?" He said, I'm going to do the plumbing at the church.
After a year of construction, the ceremonial laying of the cornerstone was held on Sunday, July 18, 1971, with the first service held the following Sunday. The building was dedicated with celebration on August 29, 1971. And while it represents the combined efforts of a dedicated community, the building itself is only a small part of the congregation's history.
So the interesting thing just now as I was thinking about the old building is I haven't been back there since we moved. I mean, there was the church moved to the new building, and I don't ever remember going back to the old building.
I think just the impact that it's had on our lives really had nothing to do with the building, except it was a very nice building. But it was the people. The church is the people and the community of faith that we create. And it had a powerful effect on us, for sure.
Pleasant Hill hired its first full-time pastor, Charles Flory, in 1913. Since then, the pastors have had a profound impact on the members of the church, each bringing their unique gifts and leaving a distinct mark on the congregation.
So things I remember from the church, Carl Cawood was really active with the youth more than anybody else. He kind of caught a little flack maybe for that, but he took us to Chicago to walk down Skid Row, which was quite an experience, and taught us about poverty. And we went on a lot of work camps.
We actually decided to visit a couple of churches, went down to that church, and Merv Wunderlich, a young guy, was the minister at the time, very outgoing, very personable. And after we'd been there one time, he came and visited, and it stuck. We became members of the Church of the Brethren.
Yeah, Pastor Tara was what brought us to Pleasant Hill, and she was there the whole time we were present. She was still finishing her studies at Earlham when I started. It was just so important to me, the influence that she had in allowing me to feel comfortable with Earlham and moving into that space and seminary and all of that. So again, a supportive presence, but a model that I look to and value and appreciate.
And then, Nick in particular has been very vocal about peace and war. Believing that the world can be a better place with some faith and people believing in Jesus and the mission of Christianity.
He has this consistency, and he has the ability to relate to people in an amazing way. I don't know how he does it quite. My experience with him is that he always knows the right thing to say and the time to say it.
I think our pastors have done a good job of seeing a need and then knowing exactly who to call on to help fill that need. Seeing skills in somebody else that maybe they hide or maybe they don't recognize as being there, I think is pretty important.
The impact of the pastors extended beyond the parishioners of their own time, creating a legacy and setting a firm foundation for those who followed.
And I must say, I'm forever indebted to Tara and Beth and the pastors that came before me, because I didn't realize I was going to get emotional about this. They left a very strong, vibrant, vital, grace-filled congregation for me to come into.
Pleasant Hill was also unique in taking on women as pastors from 1984 to 1998. This was challenging for some people at the time, both within the congregation and without, but less notable to others.
I've had that experience there, and it turned out to be a neat experience, but a different experience for the girls because they only experienced women pastors in the first part of their life.
I still remember being very confused, like that the men can't be pastors, only women are. So
I have since, in growing up, gone to seminary and am doing church work. And I did not know at that young age of, 5, 6, 7, 8, that having a female pastor was of anything of note.
The church also has a history investing in young spiritual leaders, taking on a number of student pastors over the years.
That's something too that I always liked about the church is having the student pastors, and that's again, it's something I like, working with young adults in different areas and stuff, but then helping them that level and seeing what they've went on to become, and we've helped a lot of good people become even better.
It's been a joy to be a mentor for student pastors that have come through, and some of them have gone on to really bigger and better things. So it's been a pleasure and a privilege to work with some of the Bethany students.
So after the Christmas Eve service was over, we had, an 8-hour drive back east to be with family. And so we left right after the service, drove through the night so that we could be with family on Christmas. But that gave us that long drive from Ohio to Maryland to discuss what had just happened. And it was really that Christmas Eve service that was such a clear moment for us and discernment, that drive back, by the time we had arrived, we had pretty much come to the conclusion that we were being called to co-ministry.
You have to be, I think, a unique church to welcome in student pastors every couple years, because they're not, I was there for an even shorter amount of time, but they're not there for very long. And just, being willing to let them into your church, mess with it a little bit, or, do some different things. And that just is a real openness and a special place to be willing to welcome that kind of presence in every couple years. And just grateful for you all for doing that for me and for many others.
In addition to women in ministry, the church was also a pioneer in the Sunday school movement among brethren west of the Ohio River, with the first Sunday school organized at Pleasant Hill in 1856. This too has left a strong impression on the congregation, especially among the children who grew up there.
I don't think anybody did Sunday school like Ruth Cook. And it was never anything over the top, or I don't want to say not special, but there's just something very nurturing. Like every time you went in, she was always calm, and she'd, really connect with whoever was in there.
And like when my youth group age started, then Rick Polhamus was our person a lot, which is always, I always loved the way that Rick could take like a scripture and just like turn it completely upside down, and then make me be able to see that from a very different point of view. And then yet still at the end relate it back to like just the small chat he like overheard all of us having like before we settled down for class.
A particularly large Sunday school class emerged that would go on to be known as Win Him Others, or WHO. This tight-knit group set a precedent for community that later extended to their children, the WHO kids, who went on to create memories of their own.
We have the best memories, both of us. We had a very large group in what we called the WHO class. That was Win Him Others. That's what that stood for. And we had 66 at one time in that group.
Pleasant Hill also put a strong emphasis on Bible school. Their exuberant program, known as Marketplace Bible School, has left a great impact on the church for generations.
But I had seen it somewhere along the way and just thought it was perfect. And it's my kind of curriculum, you know, hands-on, get dirty, the whole bit. And people, it was, in my estimation, it was perfect for the Pleasant Hill community because they were willing to go all in, and people did. I mean,
and we did all these big projects that lasted the whole week. We did basket weaving, and you know, I would get so much of it done and then leave it and come back the next day. And I always remember Bruce and Shirley with the fire, and they would make the bread for us, and that was one of my favorite places to go.
And Bruce and Shirley Fessler, they used to do the fry bread over the open fire. I remember our Lee was, well, we kind of teased him that he had a love for fire, and now he's a professional firefighter. But anyhow, he was their assistant, and that was right up his alley.
It's a lot of fun. So I think we did that all through my high school years. And then when I was an adult, I helped to bring that back and to do that again for our kids. So that was a really big part of my memories from growing up in the church, was that week-long Bible school where we got to dress up in our costumes, and Shirley and Bruce Fessler baking the bread out there over the fire. Just all kinds of good memories.
Along with preaching and teaching, Pleasant Hill has intentionally made room for a variety of gifts, especially those in music and drama.
One of the brilliant things the church did, when I got there, they said what they had done was they knew that they were rural, that they knew they would have a hard time finding musicians. So they church, before I was there, prior pastor, and it was before Bob, they gave music lessons to some promising students. And one of them was Lisa Fast Delcamp.
Yeah, I love to hear Lisa sing and play the piano, and Ruby, I love to hear her play the piano. And I'm not one to sing too well, but you kind of draw me out when you direct the songs.
The congregation's homegrown plays have produced a strong sense of community. They also brought the church back to its roots, incorporating real church history into the scripts.
The theme of the gift was really in the telling of the story. The granddaughter got to know a little bit more about who she was, and she was approaching a marriage, so she was, at the end of it, she felt a little bit more like she was ready to go out into the world. And that theme is something that I think is important to tie back to our church and how it grounds us for moving out into the world.
Tomorrow's your wedding day, and I was wondering how you're feeling about it.
Well, nervous, scared, and excited. I love John. I think we can be happy together, but marriage scares me.
I would say also favorite memories are the plays. And I have to say that, again, Beth Sallenberger Morphew and Sharon Bledsoe were the movers and the shakers on that. Beth encouraged it, Sharon wrote it, Sharon directed it, and everybody, pretty much everybody in the church was involved in some way.
Did you know that Thomas Major is coming to preach here? And he's bringing that preaching wife of his along?
And I loved what it did for the church. I mean, in the world of church, we were so involved and so alive. It's amazing to me to think back on.
She brought that last year.
You don't think it could be the same exact one? Nobody ate it last year.
My mom's play, The Reunion, I can still picture sitting there by the steps, the entrance to the stage, waiting for our cue, right? It was the first scene of the play, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like right in the, like, I think there was like some sort of like introduction.
Hey Mom, come on, come see. I found some really old graves. They're neat. Come on, Mom.
Yeah, they really are neat, Mama. You've got to come.
Just a minute, guys. I'll take a look before we leave.
Line that I do remember is it would change throughout the play, but it was later on in the play. Somebody would ask me about my baseball card collection, and I would always say it was first a Ken Griffey Jr. card, who was my favorite player at the time, and then it was like a Mike Schmidt rookie card that was worth $300.
Hey Zach, you still collecting baseball cards?
Of course. I've got a Mike Schmidt rookie card that my grandpa gave me that's worth $325.
Max Loxley and his punchline, he was trying to tell about I forget the exact part of it, but he was trying to tell about how somebody jumped out of something and scared everybody.
But it seems someone had been stealing Baker's watermelons, so he was lying in wait for them just when they happened along. Well, he jumped out from behind a shed with his shotgun pointed at him. He was shaking so hard the gun was rattling.
But then, of course, you know, one of the things, if you want to get close to people, you try to do something that's very difficult with them. And producing plays, as you know, is something that's not easy to do with a bunch of novices and amateurs. And we put on lots of them. And so that brought us really, really close together.
For all that happened inside the church building's walls, the congregation was not content to remain within them. Pleasant Hill has always embodied the Brethren's commitment to serving others. Whether through food banks, 5Ks, denominational organizations, or any other avenue, the community has come together time and time again to meet needs as they arise.
I would say kind of a mixture of happy and sad for me, both, were when Eli, our grandson, got sick with cancer. And then when Sarah Kuhn stepped up and decided that she wanted to start a fundraising event in support of Eli's struggle.
And it's just been something you would never think would come to be when you just have this little idea of trying to help one family. And we've probably helped over 20 families, if not more.
The one thing that really stands out to me is the work that some of our church members have done with Brethren Disaster Ministries. We've had several members, and I'm sure that probably even before the 20 years that I've been there, we had people that did this, but members who are able to go out to natural disaster areas, hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, in the United States and abroad, and help with rebuilding.
While I was there at Pleasant Hill, we started the jail ministry. That happened because we had a person whose daughter was at the county jail, and she asked me to go visit her, and I visited the woman in the jail, and she asked me, it was in December, and she asked me if I would come back and bring them communion on Christmas Eve. So after we had our 7 o'clock service on Christmas Eve, I went over to the jail and they allowed me to take communion elements into the jail and had communion with the people, with the women in the jail. And out of that communion service, we started the women's jail services.
This heart for service is nothing new for the congregation. The first women's work group, the Pleasant Hill Newton Aid Society, was organized in 1903. The church was also the home of Dan West, who founded the Heifer Project, now an international organization.
Well, in the early 50s, the church decided to sponsor a family that was displaced by the war. So we started writing letters to a family, the Marcos. We fixed up a house for them. We painted it, papered it, furnished it, even stocked the pantry. We had everything all ready for the family, and then they weren't able to make the trip right away. So we decided to accept the second family, the Muellers. Eventually, the Marcos were able to make the trip also, and we ended up sponsoring 2 families. Now that was a big project.
both inside and outside its walls, the Pleasant Hill Church of the Brethren is the very embodiment of community. 2021 marks 50 years since the cornerstone was laid, the brick and mortar both sheltering those who meet there today and serving as a reminder of the legacy of the enduring community that built it.
I think those are the main lessons for me, the importance of a church community and a wider community being there for each other and pulling for each other and supporting each other in hard times and in good times.
Aunts and uncles, cousins and kin, we're as blessed as we can be. As we gather round the table and we thank the Lord, you see, for our growing family tree. Cyrus said, Abby, will you be my wife? Spend your life with me. Yes, said Abby, I will be your wife. So they started our family tree. Aaron and Elizabeth, Zachary and Grace did their part, you see, to ensure the future of the Jackson clan. They added to our family tree. Aunts and uncles, cousins and kin, we're as blessed as we can be. As we gather round the table and we thank the Lord, you see, for our growing family tree. Next came Mary, who married Tim, 'cause he went down on bended knee. He begged her twice to become his wife, thus growing our family tree. Mary had Becky, who married Tom. They had a little girl, you see. Dorothy was her name, and she married John and carried on our family tree. All who have lived and loved and died make a family's history. Today we share what's best in life with our living family tree. Aunts and uncles, cousins and kin, we're as blessed as we can be. As we gather round the table and we thank the Lord, you see, for our growing family tree.
A foundation of love, support from above. Our home is built on foundations of love. Our church is our home, our church is our hope. Guidance and love and lessons to learn. The core and foundation for who we become. Fellowship and hope for everyone. And I know I believe that we can be the better world that we can see. And the peace that we find as we all gather here is the hope that we take to the world out there. And the peace that we find as we all gather here is the hope that we take to the world out there. Foundation of love, support from above. Our home is built on foundations of love. Foundation of love, support from above. Our home is built on foundations of love. And the peace that we find as we all gather here is the hope that we take to the world out there. And the peace that we find as we all gather here is the hope that we take to the world out there. Foundation of love, support from above. Our home is built on foundations of love. Foundation of love, support from above. Our home is built on foundations of love. Foundation of love, support from above. Our home is built on foundations of love.